Hello, my name is Shane Sinha, and I'm the community manager with QuickStart. And QuickStart has organized this webinar considering the magnitude of this recession, with millions of people have turned, like jobless, and most of the workforce has pivoted to work from home. And people could really use some guidance on career management strategies, especially at this time. So the outline, we will be going over the IT employment trends and the key things employers are looking for, and what should be what should be the plan the job seekers would be doing. And to counter that, we will be making, sharing a career strategy. And to discuss this, we have two credible coaches and speakers with us, Ed Sattar and Kim Kelly, and I'll let them introduce themselves.
Thank you, Shane, and welcome everybody. A bit about me. I've been in the workforce readiness space and since 2000, 2000, and have experience in multiple industries such as real estate, IT, healthcare, financial services, to name a few. And I've been involved in this as a CEO and operating, doing an operating role, as well as an investor, as also a venture capitalist in all these areas. And I've written various e-learning and education standards for regulations in the career training space that are still in use. Been able to touch over lives of 4 million people across multiple industries. And also I've since 1998, when I just launched my venture into the tech-enabled space, I've seen really 3 recessions, and I look forward to sharing my insights as to how people should differentiate themselves and weather the storm as they go through these as they go through the economic downturns. So glad to be here. Kim?
Thanks, Ed. I am Kim Kelly. I'm the CEO and co-founder of PeopleWork, and what I can contribute to the conversation today is my experience in having to hire if you're a job seeker, or if you're in a predicament where you're thinking, what's next? How exactly do I survive this really unfamiliar time in our economy where there's not a lot of security around jobs, maybe some questions and concerns around how education connects to the job market. And today, while we're going to talk all about those 3 segments that Shane just introduced, when we talk about the job market, what I'm hoping to bring for this conversation is not just my experience with PeopleWork, connecting and making informed decisions about what exactly to do for work next, but how you should be able to take away exactly how you can reposition yourself to thrive in this gray, kind of uncertain area that we're in. So with that, Shane, go ahead and kick us off.
Sure, thanks, Kim. So first we'll discuss the IT employment trends. And over to you, Ed.
Yeah. So what you guys see here is unemployment rate since the 1890s. And when I pull this data together, which is really, when I put this data together, we actually covered through mid-April. And since then, back then in mid-April, the unemployment rate is around 14.7%, which is is the highest since the Depression era. And now we're sitting at around losing about 2.5 million jobs. And so in really 2 weeks alone, unemployment rate went up to 20%, from 14.7 to 20%, and then we went from 20 million to 26.5 million unemployed people, and that was a read I took about 3 days ago, and I think it's probably even more now. So it is climbing. So most of the jobs are in the hospitality, in the retail and manufacturing space, and this is not going to be a very easy recovery, and it may take years for it to come back to where we were at 3.5%, where we were 3.5% in February 2020. Now, it's not a slowdown. The economic recession was not like a slow progress in going down. So we will also see a little bit of spike, but it's still, the recovery will not be as quick as some of us think. So it may take about maybe a year or 2 years. So every recession is different. In 2020 recession, the key divide here is really between unemployed and employed people, is really the education quotient of people. So most of the people that have been employed have been in low wage workers, who've had less education, according to the Labor Department, and low wage workers are losing their jobs at 4 times faster than their peers with college degrees or industry certifications. So, for example, people with less than high school have a 21.2% unemployment rate, versus people with high school or better at a 17.3 unemployment rate. So really, folks, this unemployment rate should be kind of like a kick in the pants for a lot of us that are unskilled workers to transition into becoming a skilled worker. So the recession, if you could see here, the recession doesn't seem to be as bad for IT community. So there's a good news and bad news. According to Indeed, if you compare March 2019 versus March 2020, tech jobs are down by 5.8% compared to a 25% drop in the overall job postings. But in April, job growth increased compared to March. So the top 10 most in-demand tech jobs opening positions grew 30.2% through March 20. So there is some growth and there's some movement in the IT and tech jobs. IT seems that technology hiring seems to be relatively healthy compared to other industries, despite this crisis that we're in.
So at which role appears within IT that are high in demand?
So any role that enables people to either get entertained from home, or to work from home, or to eat from home, or to purchase from home. So if you're doing e-commerce, if it's allowing you to work from home, either you're using webinar tools and digital transformation tools, so any tools like that, in any profession within the entire supply chain that supports those 4 or 5 behaviors, those jobs are in high demand, right? So like cybersecurity, cloud, people are transitioning from on-prem to cloud, e-commerce developers. Those are the, even data analysts. These are the cyber cloud e-commerce developers and even data analysts. Those seem to be pretty much in high demand in the IT section. Then here's another report from it's a wider burning glass breakdown of year-over-year growth or decline in job postings Q1 of 2019 through Q2 of 2019. However, according to Glassdoor, internet and technology jobs openings have declined 20% from 91,239 jobs in March to 71,924 jobs in April. But although there's a decline in new job postings, according to Glassdoor, but compared to other markets, they're at a decline of 75%. So this is not as bad of a story for the IT professionals. And here's some of the top positions on DICE currently at the moment. So it just gives you an idea of all the positions that are there.
So considering there's not a huge loss of tech jobs, do you think IT professionals should be worried?
In a situation like this, it's a natural, it's a natural process for people to be worried, just as being human in uncertain times. So technologists are probably worried, and they should be somewhat worried because of all the layoffs that are related to virus-related incident, right, due to COVID. But the data dictates that the technology should be in good shape as long as they diversify their skill sets that is adjacent to the current role. So for example, if you're a senior developer, then try to learn DevOps, get more certifications to cement your position and differentiate yourself. Further, consider doing some also consulting work on this side as well to kind of hedge your bets in case if you become a victim of layoff. Some employers may not be able to afford full-time resources, but they may be able to afford someone for X amount of hours part-time. I'll give you an example of a portfolio company so 3 portfolio companies are venture-backed portfolio companies. They could not afford a chief marketing officer, but what they did do is they paid a CMO candidate top dollar, but they said, hey, we don't need 40 hours of your time for every organization, but we could use you across 3 different companies. So that's what a lot of the employers are becoming very creative because they don't need because the demand is not as much. So they are able to leverage their salary for a CMO and that resource across 3 different companies, across 3 different enterprises. So that is, I'm seeing a lot of that where as shrinkage is happening, people are asked to wear multiple hats.
Shane, I'm going to add to that for really, because the question, you asked the question around, if you're an IT professional, should you be worried? And what I would add in terms of what creates that worried outside of that human, just natural, we don't know what's next. We never really know what's next. But if you are currently employed, I would ask myself, is my employer part of those 5 categories that Ed just mentioned about, is this a technology that creates an ability for a consumer to do something at home? Does it create a way of getting things done in what everyone's coined as the new normal? And if your employer doesn't have that type of technology platform, I think it's fair to be transparent to understand what's the company's plan to grow and sustain after we all kind of get to pick up and figure out what's next. And if you've done that and you are employed, that's really all that you can do to kind of settle that worry, because like I said, no one really knows what they don't know. But if you're unemployed, we are going to talk through a couple of strategies and techniques that you can think through about how to just expand your earning potential. And Ed did mention 2 or 3 of them, but I'll save that for later. I just wanted to build on the idea of what you can do if you're in either one of those scenarios.
Thanks, Kim. So here's a chart according to Burning Glass Technologies. Here's a decline in IT jobs based on the industries. So any large company that required more computing, such as e-commerce or use of the internet, such as Google, Microsoft, Amazon, Facebook, Netflix, eBay's of the world, are doing reasonably well, and they're doing really well, and they may continue to do well. as they do well, they're going to need more resources. I know Amazon is on a hiring spree. They'll continue to need more cloud architects, backend developers, database professionals, such as so on and so forth. Mid-sized companies that are focused on cloud and e-commerce may have more work than they can even handle. Any firms that require a physical storefront that requires face-to-face interaction, more likely they're suffering unless their model allows them to pivot to e-commerce. So there's a lot of organizations that are trying to pivot to that as well. And small organizations that require face-to-face interaction that got hit hard, and I've seen that even post 2000 and 2008, more startups spur, and then they are able to get talent that they were not able to afford otherwise. They can buy cheaper equipment, cheaper space, furniture, etc., right, to help their business get strong. So the demand for IT professional does not go down, but the salaries do end up getting adjusted because it ends up being the employer's market versus an employee market. So, and according to Indeed, developers are earning the highest salaries with an average salary about $139,000. So that's pretty significant.
Which technology function will have the best job outlook in the coming months and years?
According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the rate of growth for jobs in information security is projected to grow at 37% from 2012 to 2022, that's much faster than the average for all the other occupations. And we're actually seeing that here at QuickStart. We're offering like cybersecurity. We're in the cybersecurity space, data science, web development, and even cloud. And we're seeing by far 50 to 60% of the consumption is all around cybersecurity. So that data kind of correlates.
All right. So now let's look at what are the key things employers are looking for. And over to you, Kim.
Well, I can never tell you a certain secret recipe to get employers to look at you or see you for all of your skills and abilities, but I will tell you how to best present yourself, think through some of the tools you use, and talk to you a little bit about the questions that our companies hiring are looking for when they look for a job match, and maybe build on a little bit more of what Ed was talking about in terms of industry and what type of skill sets are in demand. So we are going to talk about the difference between a fixed and a growth mindset. Most people don't know the terms knowledge, skills, and abilities. It's a very HR kind of term, but what we're really looking for if you're looking at a traditional resume or if you're looking at a new type of profile, like within people work, you're looking at whether or not there's a core competency there for whatever it is that you hope that person can do once they've got the job. And then talk a little bit about values alignment and what it means to really be a problem solver, because that's what jobs are. You are there to solve a problem, and your perspective on what problems you're solving and how you go about that is definitely presented during an interview, sometimes not always transparent when you're looking at something black and white as a resume. But there's plenty of opportunities for you in that job process to make sure that you are thinking through the fact that you're there to solve a problem, and how you're able to do that is really going to determine whether or not an employer is actually going to be interested in you for a job or maybe a contract opportunity or some of the other alternative solutions that Ed had mentioned. So in a fixed mindset, we're going to talk about fixed mindset and then the difference between what a fixed skill set is, because they're completely different. A fixed mindset means I've just decided that I'm going to be a specialist in XYZ. And because I've decided that I'm that specialist, I'm not really interested in expanding my knowledge, and I'm not really interested in doing anything outside of the very exact lane that you've asked me to participate in, whatever that is. A growth mindset means I have a foundation of whatever it is that I'm interested in, whatever my skills are. And then outside of that, I'm willing to play in different spaces that touch my core competency. And the willingness to expand yourself outside of a fixed mentality and go into a growth mentality is really what's in demand. And if I just take a little bit of an analogy towards what Ed said in an employer space, where companies are looking at how does one person do multiple things across multiple companies, where employers are really looking for that same thing for their new hires and for people that are their employees, looking at subject matter experts who are really willing to say, okay, I understand database design, but I'm also able to do this, and I'm also able to do something else. So while you hired me to do one specific thing, I'm willing to and raising my hand to do more for you. Ed, is there anything you want to add to that? You're on mute.
Employers in this, but in a downward economy, or particularly not even downward or upward, irrespective of that, they're really looking for grit and hunger, right? They're looking for people that are very passionate and people that have demonstrated that they could go above and beyond and sustain persistence. That's what they're really looking for. So, the way you're going to be judged is, especially if you're a career seeker or a job seeker, what they're really looking for is, this is a downtime that happened. What did you really do? What actions did you take to improve yourself in this downtime? So that's what what they're looking for.
And actually, to pony back perfectly on expand your ability to do more things for them, to demonstrate I have the capacity to learn more than maybe my core competency. That's a good transition into understanding your knowledge, skills, and ability. So your domain authority could have been a basic programmer, and you were operating as a programmer. But programming can be applied to so many different areas of technology, and how you decide to apply that in a bigger domain is really what's most valuable. So whether or not you take a course through QuickStart and you're able to expand your knowledge maybe in cybersecurity, you understand the fundamentals of the way technology and software is built, but you've decided to expand your domain authority into cybersecurity as an example. But your skills cluster is, how many programming languages do you know? How many systems are you familiar with? Can you integrate multiple platforms? Do you understand how different technology speaks to each other? So skills cluster is another way for you to demonstrate, yes, I understand at the core X of technology. I'm going to expand that knowledge I'm going to expand that knowledge into a broader domain authority, but within that domain, I'm going to just spiderweb out my skills, because I don't want to be narrowed as a programmer. I want to be more available in a different space, and I want to expand the actual technical skills I can apply to whatever the job that's being offered. And then being a specialist. So the difference between being a specialist and expanding your domain authority, some people think it's a contradiction. A specialist means I know HR, I know hiring, I know people, I know the connection between education and work. I can expand my domain authority into different areas of what it means for payroll or for operations, or how to develop people with the right skill sets into a job. And within those skill sets, I'm able to understand, tax benefits and whatever. So I went through an example of myself, because you as a technology expert will have to do the same thing in order to really thrive in a very tight labor market. And when you think about how you make that real and valuable for any organization, you have to recognize that from a leader's perspective, they're the why. They're the ones that are out there saying, this is why we're doing what we're doing. This is the entire vision of the business. This is the opportunity that we have in the market. And when you are relating to managers, managers are figuring out how it all gets done, right? So if you're a specialist and you're not going to expand your domain authority, or you're not going to diversify your skill sets, your value to be able to be as nimble as the managers need you to be to respond to a very fluid changing leadership strategy that's happening right now doesn't present a lot of value. So you, as the subject matter expert, you're the one that has to say, I'm going to raise my hand. I know we need this because I've heard this as part of the vision. And as a manager, I know how you want it to get done, and I'm willing to do it. It may not be what I did before, but it is certainly what I'm willing to do now. I don't know, Ed, do you have any specific thoughts around when you're looking at the opportunity that exists, for example, with QuickStart, and you're trying to think of a way that somebody maybe in the group right now, and maybe we can participate through chat, if they have known one core competency for 10 years, what kind of recommendations would you make for them in terms of prioritizing what additional skills or how they expand their domain when they have access to hundreds and thousands of courses on QuickStart, as an example? How would you ask them to make that decision?
So the way I would approach it, and I know we're going to be talking a little bit about that in subsequent slides, it's identifying your goal. What is really your goal? Are you really trying to be a consultant? Are you really trying to be a professional? If you're trying to be a professional, do you want to focus on a startup company, or do you want to focus on a mid-sized company, or do you want to focus on large companies? If you go work for a large company, most of the times you don't get to wear multiple hats. They're looking for the best in the world in data science. They're looking for hyper specialization in certain positions. So it's how do you want to brand yourself? Because they're both in fairly high demands. If you want to be uber specialized in one little area and you want to be the best of the world in one little area, and there's a demand for that, right? There's a demand for that. But there's also a demand for people that want to be able to wear multiple hats, particularly in a startup or small company. They don't have the luxury of being able to afford multiple specialists, right? So they like to be able to, so you have to really figure out, are you really an independent consultant entrepreneur type? Are you really a small company guy? Are you really a mid-sized company person? Are you really a startup person? If you're startup, you better get prepared in multiple diverse skill sets. If you're mid-sized, and as the company grows, right? I've seen companies go from startup to scale up. If they go from 5 people to 500 people company, I've seen even CEOs fire themselves from various roles. They were doing 5 to 10 roles. Now they're starting to do only 1 or 2 roles, right? They keep on bringing in other people that are specialists in those areas. So I hope that helps. Good question, Kim.
From a conversation perspective, you kind of are thinking, okay, well, we understand the job market is changing. We understand that companies are trying to be nimble. And now we've outlined why, or not necessarily why, but how you can create a nimble type of portfolio of yourself to become more valuable in a very tricky job market. But before we go on to the next section, when you think about what employers are looking for, back to that whole, I have a problem that you need to solve, and that's really what work is. When you're, regardless of how you decide to earn your income, how you present yourself as that solver of a problem is what is most important at any phase of the conversation. So if you have already done the diversification of your skill sets, you've expanded your domain authority, you've decided that you're going to be known for this particular thing, and you are searching out companies that are doing things that are in demand, so the companies themselves are stable, and you know that there's going to be some realistic opportunity. Once you've gotten that door open, or even if you're in that door, the ability to remind people who influence your ability to get that job, keep that job, do whatever, to maintain your income for that particular job. It's about you restating over and over again that you have the ability to solve problems. And that could come up in a regular client conversation. It could show itself in how you ask questions during the interview process. So wherever it shows up, the point is that you need to make sure that you're thinking about how you're presenting yourself as a problem solver. And I think that's a good segue into the next section.
Yes, thank you, Kim. So now let's talk about what job seekers should do based on the current trends. And so, Ed, over to you.
You're mute. You're mute, Ed.
Yeah. As I had mentioned before, your first step is really to define your goals. And before you even define your goals, first and foremost, you have to find your purpose and what are you passionate about. And passion and purpose is something that you will be, it's the driving force, it's the glue, it's something that you could really hold on to and which will really help you push forward when things go south. So that's very critical, the why, the purpose, the passion, you got to really figure that out. Then define your goals. Are you either looking for a job or a career change? Be very, very crisp and clear in your goal strategy, and you know, and not just a job, right? You don't just want to look for a job. You want to make sure you look for a career, and this will help you narrow your search on the type of companies that you're looking for, as I had mentioned earlier, whether it's a small company, mid-sized company, large company. You know, throwing your resume out to the masses and hope someone will pick up your resume is not going to yield the right results. Although some recruiters may recommend doing that, to just go all over the place and get maximum amount of exposure, and you will land a job, but not really. It won't be necessarily aligned to your career objectives. So in case if you get laid off, you know, figure out why you're laid off, right? I mean, and versus others, why were they not laid off? And that also helps you kind of understand why you were laid off, and so it'll help you in your formulation of your goals. With respect to your career strategy, where are you now? And analyze what's driving your strategy. For example, which states, as I had mentioned earlier, the data, which states have the most amount of jobs? Do analysis. One of my coaches always said, analysis drives plan, plan drives structure, structure drives results. So if you do the proper analysis, like I just shared with you, the tech jobs like in North Carolina or Texas or California are the highest, right? So do that kind of analysis. Which companies are hiring the most? A lot of the large companies are using this opportunity to staff up more people because they believe in the long-term vision, not the short-term. Another thing to do is to differentiate yourself. Join a community, get multiple certifications, position yourself as a specialist or a generalist, as we just talked about earlier, the domain authority or becoming a specialist that can do multiple roles depending on the size of the company. Overcoming job search and career obstacles. There's always going to be obstacles, folks. Attitude and action is what's really going to set you apart. And as Kim mentioned earlier, the growth mindset. You'd only have that action and attitude if you're in that growth mindset, and that'll set you apart. And so continue to leverage your virtual network as well.
I may, to actually bridge into how complicated the whole job strategy is, how many people are on the call are actively looking for employment? Could you raise your hand if you are, so I could see it in the chat? I can see everyone. Let's see. We have 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. And out of those people that are looking for a job, awesome, thank you. And how many of you on the call are actually concerned about your future employment? Meaning you're not quite sure what's going to happen. in the next 6 months? Raise your hand. A lot. Okay. So that's perfect for what I'm about to say, because I want to make sure what I'm saying has some applicability to you guys, because you guys did such a wonderful job of logging in and giving us your time for this conversation. So thank you. All of what Ed just outlined in terms of the strategy to look for a job and the effort that it takes, as somebody who's been on the other side doing HR and hiring strategies for the Fortune 10, and then realizing what it takes to be on the other side of that process. Most of the time, people have a weird expectation of, hey, maybe weird isn't the nice word, but it's a false expectation that I'm so amazing, I'm so valuable, why wouldn't somebody just jump on hiring me? And the reality is that you are that amazing, you are that valuable, but the art that it takes to find somebody at the right time, sorry for that background noise, the art that it takes to find somebody at the right time for the right opportunity is just that, it's art, right? So it comes down to your tools. So if you don't want to do all of that heavy lifting yourself, the benefit of downloading the PeopleWork app and finishing your talent profile, you get to talk with coaches that we're experienced. We know how to navigate the hiring game. And we know how to also recommend the courses and additional education that you may need just to fit into a job that you naturally have the ability to do, because that's really, again, what companies are looking for. So when you're thinking about how you're going to position yourself and evolve into what's coming down the road, that strategy, and you're going to be asked this really no matter what, is you're going to be asked, what do you want to do? What kind of work do you want to do? Who do you want to do it for, and why? So this is not just the fluffy, hey, I want a purpose because I feel like purpose is going to drive me. This is doing things with purpose so that you can work, which that revenue, that income is what gives you the opportunity to either live your purpose or be able to develop a skill that you just have interest in. So the quadrant here, if there was any time that you would take a picture or take notes, these are the 4 things that I really encourage you to think through. And Shane, go ahead and go to the next slide. And when this I'm going to talk about really briefly, but I have it up here, and I probably could have placed it differently in the conversation, maybe up where Ed had the list of jobs. When you are a technologist, and I'm going to call everybody here a technologist, I don't know where you're at in your career experience. If you are, if you got 10 years or more experience, this still applies to you, and you can think through how you're going to pivot in a different way. And if you have less than 10 years or you're just getting started in the working world, this applies to you, but it applies to you in a different way because you would come from a different starting point. So when you're thinking about what you should do in a technology space, while we've talked about your domain authority, your skills and abilities, and how you're going to develop that knowledge to be responsive to what's in demand, don't just think of technology as software build or technology as really something as sophisticated as cyber security, even though that is a very in-demand, needed job right now. Think of it in terms of existing software, existing technology, and new software and new technology, because companies, while you think they're not technology companies, they need technologists. So when you break out your profile or how you're going to present yourself to the job market, you can really think about, okay, I can deploy software, I can manage it. Maybe I really want to be involved and have the capability to be super nimble and be part of future iterations like robotics or the Internet of Things. And if you are looking for more of a familiar space to play in, the development and the design path within new software and new technology, it's evolving every day, right? So it's not just that you have this knowledge and you have these abilities, but it's how you apply them in the job market is not just within a tech company. It's almost every company needs some sort of technologist. So that's my point here. When you think of what you should do, it's how you present yourself. So the time access tools and network, I'm going to speak just for a few more minutes, then pass the mic to Ed, because there are a couple different things that you can do that we've mentioned throughout this conversation. One is set realistic expectations for what it takes to get the job that you want. It really, if you are in need of a job, minimum time frame is 3 months. And now when you're in an area of uncertainty, it could be longer. It really just depends on the tools and resources that you're using to land that job, to land that deal, whatever, maybe new work opportunity. It's access to people, but it's also part of networking. And Ed has mentioned already, you know, be a part of not social online, but social in person. And now that we're almost past the COVID quarantine, you will find yourself with many opportunities to get connected and meet people in person, because you just never know what people need or who they're connected to. But access to the right tools like a skills development and education platform like QuickStart, where you can basically pick up all of what you need. You understand your best attributes and skills and abilities, and then you can kind of develop wherever you need to go from there. And then within the tools, we've talked about the People Work app. We've talked about the QuickStart platform. Of course, you have job boards and LinkedIn and many other things that you can do. So the decision of what tools to use, how you're going to approach them, really is delineated by where you're at in your career, what exactly you're seeking. Maybe you're not seeking a full-time career. There's a lot of what has to be decided in that goals that we talked about earlier. And what are your additional thoughts here about networking? Because I know you're really strong about networking. You're on mute.
So what I'll do is, thanks. So what I'll do is I'll double click into tools and networking. So one, by the way, I do a lot of recruiting just for networking, and LinkedIn seems to be one of my top tools that I use. And I also use LinkedIn as a very good business intelligence tools as a tool, because it tells you a lot about how companies growing, how much they're hiring, you know, some of the content that they're publishing, how much money they've raised. It's an amazing tool. So once you have been able to figure out your career strategy, now that you know wisely, and then now what type of tools are you going to use? So LinkedIn, as I had said, it's a very, very powerful tool. Don't underestimate the power of LinkedIn. When I ask people if they use LinkedIn, they usually respond, yes, I have. But when I start looking at their profile, you could just tell that they're not an avid user. So try to see if you can become an avid user. Profile picture is very, very critical. There's a lot of recruiters use a lot of keywords to search to make sure within your headline, you know, put in a lot of keywords so the keywords that you specialize in and the area of your specialization, things that you're passionate about, make sure you put a lot of those things in keywords within the headline, and then also make sure you fill out your career summary, tell your career story. You know, LinkedIn is not, you know, tell your story with specific keywords. What are you passionate about? What problems you solve? Like earlier that Kim had mentioned, right? Organizations are really looking for problem solvers. They have a goal. They want to achieve a goal as an end result, as an outcome objective. In the middle, there's a bunch of challenges and a bunch of problems. That's why they're interested in hiring people to solve those problems that are inhibiting their ability to hit those goals. So some of the goals that you've achieved, some of the things that you've done, put those down. I've reduced errors by such and such. I've increased revenue by such and such. I've done this. So or even if you're part of a team that helped achieve those metrics and those goals and solve those problems, put that in there because people are looking for that. And you know, think with the perspective of think about what a job opening means for a business. Basically, all job openings are created because, as I had mentioned, because problems needs to be solved. So make sure you put in all kinds of metrics that you could accomplish, or a potential job opening that you're applying for could be solving. Gather meaning, you know, and targeted recommendations, meaningful and targeted recommendations through throughout the year. Don't just do it at the last minute, right when you just got laid off, or when you're starting to look for a job, or in between jobs. Keep that, because because LinkedIn does keep a timestamp on the date of when those recommendations were giving. You could clearly tell that someone's trying to start managing their LinkedIn profile just because now they're starting to look for a role. That usually is a red flag. It's the people, a lot of the employers are also looking for intellectual vitality. They're looking for persistence and consistency in someone. Engagement and content creation is another area that you guys should really focus on. Write blogs, curate your timeline with the most relevant content, follow top influencers, join specific groups that are aligned with where you want to take your career, share posts, and also like posts, follow relevant hashtags, and also try to help whenever you can. So those are some of the best practices that I would recommend in how you want to brand yourself and how you want to use LinkedIn.
All right. So Kim, you want to introduce this slide?
So this, we've done so much to set the foundation for, hey, what are we really facing in the job market? What recommendations, what are employers looking for? What can you do? And in terms of what you can do, it doesn't necessarily stop you at an employee-employer relationship. Ed and I have been throwing out whether you could be a consultant or you're an independent contractor. That all goes back to your goals, and sometimes it's almost playing all sides until you actually find what you're successful in from a niche perspective, because the definition of an employee-employer relationship is changing all the time. The companies are looking for, and we know this from the companies that are on the PeopleWork platform, they want just as much of flexibility in the job experience that you do, and trying to always fit somebody into a full-time role it's just sometimes not always possible. So the ability to get work, how you get work, and the tools available for you, regardless of what path you actually end up going on, goes always back to those goals and those goal settings. Is there a survey here that we need to take, Shane?
Yes, this is for the users.
Okay. Do you want to pause, or do you want Ed to go ahead and keep talking about any other additions he has for the job seeker? I know we've got a few more minutes left before we have some Q&A.
Sure. So we can continue.
Yeah, let's do that.
People are taking the survey.
Okay.
Yeah. So I would like for you to, if there's a next slide, if you could go to Shane. I would like for you to leave you with the notion and with the proverb, right? When fishermen can't go to the sea, they repair their nets. In its simplest terms, the proverb reminds us that there will be times in our lives where we may not be able to do things we always the way that we've been doing for years, and in the way that we've been doing it, right? So that doesn't, however, mean that we should simply sit around and feel sad or being idle. There's a lot of people that do shut down, and the idea of repairing the net means using the downtimes to reinvigorate yourself, right? The tools of the trade. You could use isolation and step back from the traditional functions of your roles and give yourself an opportunity to regroup, and you can potentially emerge as a stronger professional by gaining diverse skill sets, or you could be hyper specialized, or getting skill sets to help you become very specialized by going very, very deep into any existing skill set. And this is what a lot of the employers are looking for. They're going to be looking for, they're going to ask you a lot of these questions when you're going through an interview process. What did you do in this downtime? And you know, what one of my friends, you know, always used to say, you know, take the lead on the uphill, right?